Yeah.
This is going to go wonderfully.
It is going to go wonderfully, obviously, because we are live now. And welcome to Geeks with Kids, the bi-weekly geeky podcast. From a parenting point of view, I'm Eric, and with me, as always, are my incomparable hosts, David, Hawk, Marcus, and Matt Moore on his cell phone. How's it going, guys?
Yay.
Ooh, good.
Excellent.
We did it.
We did it. Today we are joined by a special little window on our stream, and it is one of the best Canadian comic writer, illustrator, Jim Zub. You may know him from his work on Rick and Morty versus Dungeons and Dragons, Skull Kickers, Wayward, Samurai Jack, Glitter Bomb, Thunderbolts, Avengers, No Road Home, and much more. His current projects include Conan the Barbarian, the Stranger Things Dungeons and Dragons crossover, and Marvel's Heroes Reborn Young Squadron. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Wow, he's got a full lineup there on the credits. I'm impressed. I got to, they sent me an outline for this podcast. They have a pre-show, and he got my credits right. I think this might be one of the most professional podcasts I've ever been on.
Oh, my heart. Thank you. So, if you caught us last week, or the last episode, we actually talked about the not Friday, because I don't put those out in podcast form. We do watch parties on Fridays, and we'll be continuing to do that with Falcon Winter Soldier. But the last podcast we had, we talked about all the WandaVision episodes up to episode 7, I believe. But tonight, we're going to be talking about the finale and the overall series as the main topic. But before we do that, I'd like to turn to my friends on the stream here and ask them what they're currently enjoying in their lives, what they're obsessing over, what games, books, TV shows they're liking. So I ask, what's good? Let's start with our guest, Jim. What are you enjoying? What's good?
I've been playing, in between work stuff, I've been playing video games. I finished up a couple weeks ago, I finished up Control, which is a really, really sweet game.
One of our game of the years.
With it. Yeah, it's so good. I really love the setting. It's super evocative. The gameplay is really fun. I really, really liked it. It was great. I dove really deep into that. And now I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima, and that's really slick as well. So I got a PS5, and that thing's running 60 frames a second. It looks real good and it plays real smooth. Super impressed with the game. Yeah, it's really, really good. Yeah. And so I'm trying to balance out, like I give myself like samurai time. Like I get a little bit of work done, and then I'm going to go, hack some people up and run around the beautiful landscapes for a bit. Otherwise, I've been trying to fill in some gaps in my old D&D book collection. I used to look for stuff when I was going to conventions, but no one's going to conventions. So now I'm like trolling around eBay auctions trying to find old books to fill in the gaps in my nerdy collection. Those are the 3 things that I am geeking out on right now.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
Awesome. Hawk, if there's no other reason to get a PS5, it's to play Ghost of Tsushima in 60 FPS, man.
It's super good.
It's so good.
I know. I'm still checking the websites and that. I'm still seeing that, they have a big shortage. So yeah, it'll come when it comes. I have a computer to buy first. It should be here soon. So
you have to be patient like a samurai.
That's right. Yeah, I'm gonna waiting for the very zen about the whole thing. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, let's move over to Dave. What are you liking this week?
You know what I've been playing a lot of.
D&D?
No.
Oh,
which is also good. My brother helped me set up a Valheim server, and I've got it's 67 hours or something like that in it. It is super fun. We've killed up to the 3rd boss. Oh my god! For a game that looks like it's on a Nintendo GameCube and runs like it's on a Nintendo GameCube, it is a lot of fun. And my friends are like, I've got, we can get. I think we usually get 5 people on tops at one time. But
I will join one day.
I hope so. It is great. Like we've just been sailing. We built a long ship because you build different sizes of ships in it, and we built a long ship, and we sailed halfway over the planet. The planet is flat, and we don't know what happens when we go off the edge yet, but we will be going off the edge of it at some point, which is exciting. I've just literally been running around trying to clear the whole map. But it's a lot of fun. It's kind of like Conan Exiles, kind of like Skyrim. You do farming, you fight monsters. It's
What prompted you to start on it? What?
A lot of my friends were picking it up because it's dirt cheap. It's $22 Canadian, and I realized you could do a dedicated server. So I thought, well, I basically only play games I can play with my friends, unless it's like Baldur's Gate 2 or something like that, which I guess I could play with my friends. But yeah, they were like a bunch of them were like, oh, you should get this. Like we should all play. So I'm like, all right. So I got it, and I've probably caught up to all of them just because I don't sleep. So some of them had 100 hours when I started playing. And yeah.
Isn't that game like 2 weeks old? 3 weeks old?
Yeah. And that's why it runs like a potato, because it's not bad because it's built on Unity, but like it's like 5 guys or whoever made it. That's amazing. Of course it's like Among Us. Like they had no idea they were going to blow up. They had 5 million concurrent players or something like that. Like
what has caused this explosion? Just like what?
It's the zeitgeist. It just hits the right spot at the right time. Vikings are in right now. I don't know why everybody loves Vikings. And to be fair, it is a good game. It is a fun game, and people like survival games, but it's not as survival-y, I think, as some other survival games. Yeah. Like you don't have to eat to survive, but eating will like increase your health and stamina and stuff like that. So cool. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And it really, really does look like a GameCube game. So I think some people, that's actually a big draw because they really miss that era. Sure. So that's what's good is Valheim.
Excellent.
Or actually, as I call it, it's Arkheim. Sorry. On my stream, it's Arkheim.
Real question. Are you singing sea shanties as you're sailing around the world?
Yeah, a lot of Weatherman and Roll the Old Chariot Along.
I would expect
favorites. So.
I wouldn't expect otherwise.
Yeah.
All right. Let's before we move on, Matt Moore, we've gotten a request for a dab, and I think you know what that means.
Yes. Yeah. I'm getting too old for this.
Throw your shoulder.
What's that over there? What's that right there? Oh, there it is. Okay.
Thank you.
Audience interaction.
Thank you, Detective Popcorn, for that dab and for the 100 bits. Let's move on over. We might as well go over.
We were professional, Jim, but now you realize.
It's fine. It's fine.
They're professional. I'm the dancing monkey in the corner that does all the stuff that the viewers want. So.
We might as well go to you, Matt. What are you enjoying this week?
I enjoyed that dab. It was like the most exercise I've had in weeks, which is kind of sad for me, but we don't talk about that. I'm actually really, really loving Disney Plus's new edition of Star, since they've now opened up the Fox archives. So much cool stuff is on there. I'm actually slowly working my way through the last 2 seasons of The Muppet Show that I couldn't buy commercially because they had all those locks, because, the Star Wars cameos that now Disney owns everything, so I can watch them again.
Nice.
Because I'm a child, really. It's fun that way.
We all are.
Yeah. Pretty much just that and working. I don't do much else other than that. So that's pretty much it.
Very good. I
just re-uploaded Borderlands 3 today because I haven't played that in a couple of years. So I'm like, I'll give this another go. Now they've patched it all to business.
Nice. Yeah, I actually started watching Fringe again on Star because of Control, which reminds me of Fringe. So I started watching it again. It was such a good show. Marcus, what are you liking right now? What's your yum?
My yum.
We have a guest this week. I have to behave.
Yes, you do. I've been a mishmash of many different things, but all vary in very sparse segments. I've been trying to play a few video games and stuff. I just downloaded the Final Fantasy VII remake today, so I'm really excited to actually go through that. I've heard you guys just rave about it for so long that I just can't wait. But I did start playing another one of the free PS Plus games called Maquette.
I was going to talk about that too.
It is really cool. It's very quirky. It's still kind of buggy, but it's really cool. I think it's like, I'm a big puzzle person. I love like weird puzzles and stuff like that. So it's like a very surreal puzzle kind of game. There's like this underlying like monologue of 2 people talking and stuff that's really kind of questionable and weird. But if you're in any way interested in like puzzle games, it's something that you should check out if you have PS Plus, because why not? It's free and it's interesting.
Oh my God.
We got to have a chat about it at some point, Eric. Mm-hmm. It's great. Other than that, I've been spending a lot of time trying to track down. I'm a big Star Wars helmet collector person. I have I have a wall of helmets, and I've been trying to collect a few of the more hard to find helmets, or find kits that I can put together and make and everything. So in my travels of doing that, I've been doing a lot of eBay and Amazon buys. And then for my other yum is these pair of sunglasses that I bought on Amazon because they're awesome.
Oh, those are sick.
I'm digging these, and I cannot wait to like wear these all summer long.
Can you send me the link for those?
I will.
Yeah, just send it in the group chat.
City, so no one will know.
You can get them in different colors. I chose the classic Cyclops yellow because why not?
We're all gonna
but
buy
you
these.
can have like black, blue. Yeah, we should all just own these because they're fantastic.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
And those are my yums.
Nice. I'm gonna actually go next because I'm just gonna go off the Maquette thing. Maquette is such a good game. It's a puzzle game,
so
and
cool.
it's free for PSN Plus subscribers. Basically, there's in the middle of this sort of town type thing, there's a model, a maquette in the middle, and you can control what's happening in the town using that maquette in the middle, and it's so good. Like you resize things, and the story is about two people meeting and sort of their life together, and one of the actors is Bryce Dallas Howard, so it's really well acted. Such a good game. I highly recommend it. Hawk, you're the last one.
Yes. So my yum for this week.
You're gonna kill Matt Moore.
Came after Eric sent me this message, which began Real Talk and that. And I always go by a recommendation of a TV series when Eric begins in a serious tone like that. So what I'm vibing on this week is the Cinemax series Warrior, currently available on Crave. I am about 9 episodes into it now. For anyone who's interested in watching it, it takes place around turn of the century America, San Francisco area.
Right?
Yeah, and focuses mainly on the Tong Wars of that period. The first time I ever learned about the Tongs was way back when I was watching Deadwood, and I had never even heard the name. I did a little quick Google search on it and found like this whole kind of rich history on like these Asian American gangs, and this series focuses solely on that with some of the most incredible fight sequences that I've seen on a TV series, and that a TV series should not look this good.
It should not look that good, right?
No.
It's actually based on the writings of Bruce Lee. He had tried to bring the series to fruition back in the late 60s, but no studio would take him up on it because it's an Asian-led TV show. So
they made Kung Fu instead, right? That was the
they made Kung Fu instead with a white person. So but
you jump ahead to 2019. The first 4 actors listed in the main credits in that are Asian American actors, and it's amazing.
It's such a good show. It's like the best Hollywood stunt people work on that show, and it's just
you got me so hooked when you sent that first little clip, that first shot, that first scene. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, I have to watch this show.
There is an issue with this show. That being, it was part of Cinemax's lineup, and last year, actually the fall of 2020, they decided to stop all their live action TV shows or any of their original scripted shows. So it got bought up by HBO Max. So now it's airing in the States on HBO Max. So hopefully it'll get a 3rd season through them. Fingers crossed.
Sweet.
All right, that's our what's good. And normally we move to the news next, but really I feel like WandaVision is going to take up most of our time because there's a lot to unpack there. And I don't think the only news I'd want to talk about is how Kim's Convenience is now ending with this current season. And I don't think I can deal with the emotions of that because I love that show so much. And Simu Liu is actually really sad about it ending. So, man.
Hello, motherfucker.
What? Oh, there's so many things happening on their stream, so I keep on getting sound notifications. Hilarious. Anyway, let's move on to the main topic, and that is WandaVision. So previously on Geeks with Kids, we ended up chatting about what we thought the series was going to go towards the finale and what our hopes and dreams were for that last episode. So we jump into the aptly titled 9th episode of WandaVision, titled The Series Finale. Now, what we normally do is this roundtable discussion where we just sort of talk about things we liked and what we felt about themes. I'm going to actually start this with a summary of the episode just so that we can just go off of that. If you want to stop and bring up a point, feel free to do that. Or we'll just talk after the summary. I don't mind either way. So this episode sees Agatha Harkness attempting to take Wanda's chaos magic as she had previously done with her coven during the Salem trials. They are interrupted by Sword's version of the Vision, who tries to kill Wanda. Luckily, her conditional vision intervenes. As the two visions fight throughout Westview, Agatha frees the residents of Westview from Wanda's control. I don't know why I wrote Westview twice. From Wanda's control, who then pleads with her to release them. In a turning point for Wanda, she fully realizes what she's done to the townspeople, and she releases them, which allows Hayward and Sword to enter the barrier. On the other side of town, we see Monica Rambeau being held by Pietro, who we find out is actually Ralph Boner, an aspiring actor who is under Agatha's spell. Monica frees Ralph from her grasp and goes on to help the twins fight Sword, displaying more of her newly acquired abilities. We then see the Vision versus Evil Vision fight come to an impasse where Good Vision tries to reason with Evil Vision using the Ship of Theseus thought experiment. Good Vision is then allowed to restore Evil Vision's memories, which creates a fully resurrected Vision. Possibly. White Vision then escapes through a hex-shaped window. Wanda and Agatha continue their fight, and at one point, Wanda hexes Agatha, a la Tony Stark in Age of Ultron, to relive her past. As they continue to fight, we see that Wanda has placed magical runes around the barrier, which prevents Agatha from using her magic, and she fully transforms into the Scarlet Witch in an amazing costume. Wanda then traps Agatha in her Agnes persona, which is sort of terrifying, and fans around the world hope we get to see Catherine Hahn come back in the future. In an incredibly emotional scene, Wanda says goodbye to her twins and Vision before finally collapsing the barrier. She then leaves the town and goes into hiding. We'll talk about the post-credit scenes later. What did you guys think of this finale? Favorite parts, Easter eggs? Let's jump into it. Go.
So I loved it. Loved everything that they did. There's a lot of things I was hoping would happen, didn't happen. A lot of things I would love to have seen. No mojo.
No mojo. Wow.
That was my.
We were hoping for a post-credit scene where Mojo's just watching everything. But,
just like yes. I did love everything. I was really my biggest disappointment was the Ralph Boner thing. Yeah. Like I really was hoping for some sort of interesting interdimensional tie-in with the X-Men universe and that kind of thing. I was really hoping there would be some sort of, like just that glimmer of hope of the X-Men entering the MCU kind of thing, or crossing over, or something. So I was a little disappointed with that, but otherwise the episode was great. I still was hoping for, I don't know where I got it from, but I remember I thought there was going to be some other big cameo, like some kind of like crazy.
That was Paul Bettany. So Paul Bettany.
It was Paul Bettany.
He did it.
Just you wait. You won't believe. I'm like, oh my God, Al Pacino's going to be in this. Here we go. Al Pacino.
Al Pacino is Mojo.
So he said, this is his quote. He was talking. He was talking to Entertainment Tonight Canada, and he was saying that he finally got to work with an actor that he really respects the full line of his work, and he was totally trolling because he was just working with himself. Like, that's just an amazing troll.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Should we go off that Quicksilver / Boner thing? What did you guys think? They cast the Quicksilver.
I believe it's pronounced Bonner. I think it's Bonner.
Wasn't there a boner on Growing Pains too?
Yes, there was.
So I feel like that's a
Richard Stabone.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good pull, like for this show, having someone named Boner, just like in Growing Pains.
Having the sitcom deep cuts.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Like once you get beyond all the hype that was built up about people's expectations around the X-Men or Fantastic Four or the multiple dimension stuff, I think that fan hype week to week was a lot of fun to prognosticate about. But as an actual series, it's focused on Wanda's trauma and the effects of Vision's death and all that stuff. I do wish the secondary characters hadn't gotten such a short shrift. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like Monica got a real, kind of not very much to do in that last episode, and Darcy, and they all kind of felt like they were pushed to the side. And I get it. It's not their show, but it would have been nice to have a little bit more on their front. But on the whole, because Wanda and her grief is the anchor point emotionally for everything, that pays off like in a real satisfying way. And so everything else you can kind of, you hand wave and you go, okay, whatever other concerns I have, the story they set out to tell emotionally, they delivered on, and that's what's going to last. You know what I mean? That they made the stuff that they'd hinted about for their relationship in Infinity War, like the way that they had shown that they had built up a little bit of that relationship between Age of Ultron and Infinity War and all that stuff really paid off. Like, you believe in that relationship, you believe in those emotional, the content of that. And that's what lasts, and that's what sticks. And beyond anything else, because those characters were written well, and because that trauma plays out in a really visceral and intense way, and then you get this the satisfying payoff of it, and her getting to say goodbye and all that stuff, and this, the potential that they may even come back again, that is where people's hearts lie, and that's why it works, for me as a viewer. Yeah.
There's something amazing about having this emotional journey through Wanda's trauma that you couldn't really get in a 2-hour movie. So having this series really built her character really well. And the fact that they mirrored it through the decades with different types of TV shows, like starting with the 50s where people didn't really talk about things that were bothering them. There's that fantasy family life, and then going through each decade, becoming more realistic until we hit the 2000s, 2010s with the Modern Family, where people talk more about stuff that troubles them, like with the interview camera style. Like, I think that was such a fascinating way to go about dealing with trauma on a show.
Yeah. Yeah, big time. And that thing you mentioned about the deep dive, that you're able to spend hours with these characters instead of just, the Avengers movies are amazing, the way they're able to bring together such an ensemble. But all their characterization is so brief. You know what I mean? The one thing I said to my wife, we finished watching it, I was like, man, I think from the announcement, you were like, oh man, Wanda gets a TV show. All these other characters get solo movies and all this stuff. In some ways, she comes out stronger for it. She comes out way more well-rounded, and it gets a deeper, emotional arc across those films. Can you imagine if we would have gotten a TV show of the Hulk showing the transformation from the Hulk that loses in Infinity War and then where he ends up in Endgame with that smart Hulk and all that stuff? If they'd have shown that in a miniseries, that would have been so emotionally resonant and been so, intense as an experience. And it's like, now I want to see more of those. I want to see more deep dive kind of TV miniseries that has that movie quality to it.
Well, I was super hesitant when they kept announcing all these series. I said, no, because they're going to be way lower quality. And that's obviously not the case.
Yeah. Yeah. You see in the trailers, the Falcon and Winter Soldier looks like a movie.
Well, the thing I kept bringing up last time was like the effects for what is essentially a TV show. Like, these are just movie effects. Like, this is just straight up like multi-million-dollar, per shot movie effects. They look amazing. And because it's, it's 9 episodes or whatever, the actors really get to stretch their legs.
Yeah. I mean, and they play smart. They definitely have episodes where they're flexing their muscles with the effects. And because of the sitcom format, they're able to ride out some, it's mostly costuming and staging stuff. But then when they finally get to those effects, you're like, look, this has to hold up to the Avengers. This has to be on the same level because it's the same characters. It's not even just the same universe. It's like, we have.
And his name is John C.
Ooh, sorry.
I was going to say
there's a sound effect that just played off. Sorry.
No worries.
I was wondering. Just going back to what you're saying with the last episode, where characters like Monica and Darcy didn't really get a lot of attention. There's been some speculation online, and no one's either confirmed or denied it, that when they were shooting this, it was right in the midst of when COVID hit. So there was some speculation that when they were wrapping the series up, certain actors couldn't necessarily go back to do reshoots or to finish.
Oh, interesting.
Filming.
Yeah,
which would be why, like, in the
that would
case
make a lot of sense
with Darcy, where she showed up for that one,
just a snap moment, and you're like,
and she's alone in the scene too. Like, she doesn't even have any other actors with her. And then they just shot. Was it Talbot?
Hayward.
Hayward. Sorry.
Hayward.
Yeah, and then it's like a shot of her, a shot of him. So those could be pickups where it's just like, one actor alone.
That's why I said there's a lot of speculation that it was just they weren't there, or they either couldn't be on set at the same time, or just they couldn't get all the actors together and just finish filming with the
problem solving.
So exactly. So it's the who knows what it could have been, but you never would have known to look at other than they really didn't give a denouement on that but
And it's better than nothing.
and then they pivot if they had to pivot the focus to Wanda and Vision. Awesome, like that's sort of the point of the series anyway. So it kind of worked out.
Yeah.
Totally.
OG Silent in our Twitch chat said Paul Bettany had an interview where he said that WandaVision had more FX shots than in Endgame.
Wow.
That seems
weird.
I
mean, it is 9 hours or whatever. It's like maybe 7 hours or whatever it works.
Well,
out to.
I mean, if you take into account all the times like you see the sets glitch and like all those little tiny things, even the cheap effects, like there's cheesy effects that are happening that they're still spending good money and quality on. So if you add all those up, there's a lot of small things happening. So maybe
numerically there is, they're not throwing the same amount of money, but
no, definitely. I mean, like you're not going to see a giant Ant-Man running around in the background and just be like, oh, that's just fine for shits and giggles. Have him run back and forth a few times. Right. It'll be fine. But I mean, numerically maybe, but either way, it's still crazy impressive.
Yeah. Going back on that getting a character fully realized through a series, I'm really excited for Hawkeye because he's one of my favorite characters, and he hasn't really done much in the movies. Like we get a little bit of him in Infinity War and Endgame, more so with his family.
It's interesting that he does get the most family ties and kind of emotional ties, but they don't have time to spend on them because the ensemble cast is too big and there's too much stuff to do, right? So they have the material there for sure. There's definitely all the the anchoring that you need to make it work. I'm hopeful that it's going to be strong.
Yeah, me too. Especially with Kate Bishop coming in and them introducing some of the new Avengers. Speaking of new Avengers, we had Jimmy and Tommy in this series, and it looks like they have disappeared. But in one of the post-credit scenes, we hear them screaming for Scarlet Witch. So in the second post-credit scene, I should probably explain it. We see an arrow shot going towards a cabin in the woods, a solitary one, as they do in these movies, sort of like the Hulk did. And we see that Wanda's making tea. But as the camera continues to the back room, we see an astral projection of her in her Scarlet Witch getup. And she's reading the Darkhold or studying it. And we hear screams of Tommy and Billy screaming out for help from her. What do you think of this scene? What do you think of them possibly coming back in the future, maybe in an older form?
And not just that, but the Doctor Strange theme is playing.
Yes, that.
Yeah.
So, and wasn't that movie supposed to come out in like three weeks at the end of this?
Yeah, definitely.
So it would have been
totally
like a
different
perfect
schedule. Yeah, it would have just led right into Multiverse of Madness. Totally.
It would have been amazing.
The big theory is that they're going to go into the whole theory about Wanda being a Nexus being, because we got the whole thing with the Nexus, antidepressant and that, which was a huge hint in that. But so she's probably hearing Tommy and Jimmy and that from some other dimension of that. I know like everybody was a little bit disappointed that we didn't get Pietro from another multiverse dimension. So everybody thought that Marvel was kind of closing the door.
Hold on one sec, Hawk.
Yep.
There's a sound effect playing on our Twitch stream. People are redeeming bits for sound effects.
Turn it off.
I know. I don't know. I'm trying to.
I was going to jump on something. I saw. What do you think of the idea that? What do you think of the idea that J. Jonah Jameson could be a Nexus being because it's still being played by J.K. Simmons?
That would be.
I think that's just good casting.
Yeah. Well. The perfect.
Sometimes
casting.
you got to cast the right person, no matter what. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think. Multiverse of Madness is definitely going to be fascinating to see if they carry that idea forward with the Doctor Strange stuff, So, I think it's an exciting time. One of the things that I've just learned, obviously I'm ludicrously biased, but I've learned not to bet against the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like every time they announce something and I kind of go, really? You think that's going to work? When they announced Guardians of the Galaxy way back when, and I thought, you got to keep in mind, nowadays, of course, Guardians of the Galaxy, huge hit, amazing. Those characters were not popular, back in the day, and the comic was mid-list at best. And you were just like, you're going to make that's a choice for all the characters and all the properties you have to pick from. You're doing Guardians of the Galaxy? And then it comes out and it is so good. It's one of my favorite Marvel movies. My mother now knows who, Rocket Raccoon and Groot are. Like, how did we get to this incredible?
Don't feel bad because my mom
age?
still doesn't know who those people are.
No, it's like a golden age of these comic book movies that they can, take any of these properties and dig down to the heart of what makes it so resonant and what makes it interesting and what makes it entertaining. And so I've kind of learned, just like when they announce this stuff, I might have a moment where I like WandaVision when they announced it and it was all one word. And I thought, what are you doing? That sounds warped, you know? And then whatever, they've got a plan, you know, Feige and the crew know what they're doing. I'm just, I'm along for the ride like anyone else. You know?
So when they, like Falcon and Winter Soldier was probably the biggest thing I was excited for. I love those characters in the comics. You know, I love their comics. You know, I love just Winter Soldier as a character is so cool to me that he could have this crazy history, and Ed Brubaker's just like, let's bring him back. Let's do it. Let's bring him back. So when they announced like series, I was like, oh man, like that should really be a movie. But after seeing WandaVision, I have full confidence that, you know.
Well, and now you're kind of relishing the extra time we're going to get to spend with the characters. Instead of it having to be this breakneck 2.5 hour or whatever thing, you're like, yeah, man, give me 6 hours. Let's really dive into it and get to know these characters and have those moments, because they're going to make it worth it. You know, that, that excites me.
Imagine 9 episodes of Baron Zemo in any other time in history.
Oh my God.
I am.
Like what? Possibly wearing the mask?
Right?
I have to say, I think Baron Zemo is probably my most anticipated villain since Thanos. Like and it's not even like a big thing. Like,
well,
the potential of it, right? Like, you know, when they introduced him, he was okay and it works, you know, like I really like the Civil War movie, but it's not much because of him. It's because of everything else happening around him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now if they can really build him up to be this A-list villain or be this real master manipulator, I think it'll be so much better.
At this point, we have an entire series or a mini series like this to stretch it out and really like dive into it, which would be great. But also, I mean, like, because we had that character go through the events of Civil War and everything, now he has more motivation. He has a lot more riding on, not riding on, but like he has a lot more to motivate him to be the proper villain that we want him to be, and to really start manipulating. And hopefully at this point, maybe he's a little bit better with a sword and stuff too.
Do you think he's going to be even more angry since they didn't stop the snap the first time?
I wonder if, we got hate.
You think like he would have figured out a way? Like, I mean, he's a very intelligent character. He would have. He seems like the kind of guy who'd be like, this is supposed to be your job. Like, why didn't you stop it? You couldn't save Sokovia. Now you can't save half the universe. You know, why are you even
really good?
Yeah, well, we talked about it last episode where WandaVision created this new type of villain that's sort of this dealing with the after effects of the blip, right? So Hayward was created because he went through the blip, all that loss, and then he had to deal with the aftermath of everyone coming back and not making sure everyone was safe. I wonder if they're going to take Baron Zemo and add a little bit of that to him, because that would be a really interesting take on that character.
Didn't I say last week that everything is still Tony Stark's fault? Because
it seems like
he didn't stop the blip and then he brought everyone back. So it's still all his fault. Nice. Everyone still gets to blame him for everything happening in the Marvel Universe.
Even dead, he's still the villain.
That's right.
That's right. Tony is the best and the worst of the Marvel Universe all in one.
Which is a great character.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing. I mean, when I think of growing up, and Iron Man was a book that I would skip more often than not because it just didn't compel me very much. And now Tony Stark is this super A-list character that everyone knows and loves. And I think that was not the case. That was not the case back in the day. Like, Iron Man was a good book at times, but it was really dependent on who was on it, and it wasn't the book that, you know, you would collect and everyone was breathlessly talking about. That just wasn't the character, you know. And again, their ability to take these characters and find something really special beneath the surface and pull it up and cast really well and write really well and bring them to the fore. It's an incredible thing they're putting together. They've not only just written these really good like main characters, but we also got these amazing secondary characters in Jimmy Woo. We get Darcy, and the fact that they have been this sort of shining light this series, and everyone on the internet is just like, where's my Jimmy Woo / Darcy series? Of Atlas. Yes. Yeah, man.
Yes.
How do you not love Randall Park as Jimmy Woo? Like,
he's oh my god,
so lovable.
And his little arc of him getting into the close-up magic, and in the last episode with the flourish.
Yes, with the flourish.
I mean, part of me watching that scene, part of me is like, nobody saw this guy palm a cell phone that's behind him, and there are 2 guards behind him. But I'm like, you know what? If Batman can just reappear in Gotham because he's Batman, Jimmy Woo can palm a cell phone if 2 people are watching. He's got like a +12 sleight of hand.
That's good stuff. Well, I think that's one of the things, like you're saying, their ability to build warmth in the secondary characters as well has been really amazing, where you cheer for these background characters, which is, when I read the comics and I think about some of my favorite supporting cast, that's a deft trick to be able to pull that off in these movies and in these other series where the secondary characters become so beloved and engaged that seeing Darcy come back was like, oh yeah, this is good. I like this, like this is, it gives a feeling of continuity in the way that the best comics do, and to see that on such a broad scope over and over again, I still just shake my head because it just seems so impossible that we're seeing all this stuff. Even Vision and Scarlet Witch, like they're two of my favorite characters. I've had the thrill to write them multiple times. And to see them now, like the most popular superheroes in the world right now, like that's utterly surreal to me. That's so strange.
Jim Zub bump. That's what it is.
Yeah, right. The only thing that worries me about that is that now every A-list writer is going to want to jump on and write their stories. Like, you couldn't get people to write some of these characters before, and now everyone wants them because they're Hollywood. So it's kind of a mixed blessing in that regard.
Shouldn't that increase sales of your trades though?
I would hope so. I would hope that if they announce a movie called Avengers No Surrender, then I'm sure I'll do just fine. But
I'm still praying for a Skull Kickers movie. Okay.
Oh man.
Hey,
well,
I got my fingers crossed for Thunderbolts. That's all I'm gonna say.
Thunderbolts. I feel like of all the things I've written, the Thunderbolts stuff probably is the most attached to the MCU bits that you could make work, because having Bucky end up leading a group of criminals trying to reform, and some of them using him and abusing him and all this kind of stuff, that would be awesome. And if you had some sort of cosmic power at the center of it, whether it's Kobik or someone else, I feel like you could totally play that in the MCU, and it would play very cleanly. I think you could do Thunderbolts in some really, really cool ways. I will be looking forward to if they introduce any of the Thunderbolts villains in with Zemo. I'm just going to be licking my chops to see if that turns into something cool.
Oh, the possibilities. Speaking of villains, we should talk about Agatha Harkness, because she was brilliantly portrayed by Catherine Hahn, and her relationship with Wanda was always, I felt that she was always sort of this gray character, or you weren't sure if she was good or bad. And she was always that teacher type of person to Wanda, at least from what I've read. And we get a little bit of that teacher moment when Wanda puts those hexes on. I think that was their sort of their little nod to it. But I love that the series didn't end up killing this character, because it would be such a waste of such a deep character that they just get rid of her. And now that she could sort of come back, like, we don't know how the hex is going to work around her, but yeah.
Well, just the fact that she was like, if I need you, I know where to find you, and like everything like that. That was a great way of just getting everybody satisfied with, okay, Catherine Hahn's probably coming back at some point. We're going to see her again. I love Catherine Hahn. And I realized somebody did a great mashup video, and they said it really was Agnes or Agatha the whole time, whatever. And it's just her, like, she's been screwing with people from different characters from different movies and TV shows for years, and you're like, holy shit, Catherine Hahn is the ultimate villain. Like, she's a sleeper villain. Oh my god, it's amazing, and I just love her to death. She's so good.
Yeah, I think she did such a really good job of building up all the facets of that character, the surface level where she's not just the nosy neighbor, but the nosy neighbor plus. Like, she's so overwhelmingly helpful and overwhelmingly nosy and into everything. And then seeing that slow kind of turn was really great. And the character is extremely different from the comics, but satisfying in a very different way. So
yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Sorry, Matt.
I was just going to say, the one thing I find really interesting is that when it comes to all the MCU, really the only antagonists we've seen that haven't been killed off in some way, shape, or form have been the magic users.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I'm 100% okay with that. I noticed I'm like, they tend to love to kill off really compelling villains in the character-driven movies. I'm like, I
still
get why,
hate
but why?
Andy Serkis is, to me, the biggest injustice. Like him, I loved Ulysses Claw. I loved his claw. it may, again, another like kind of lower list villain from the comic books that like not a lot of people
but a
really cared
primary
about.
villain for Black Panther. So
Yeah.
it
Exactly.
really
And then you
feels
killed
like
him
he
off.
should have
Like,
stuck around. Yeah.
yeah, and it would have been so easy to just, instead of kill him, just shoot him and like, you know, bring him in alive and have them take, like the Wakandans take him. Like, it could have been so easy, and like you could have explained a million ways how he escaped, or somebody helped him, or anything you want. But I love that character, and now he does like,
Well, they
barring some
screwed up
sort of
double now, right?
magic.
Because they killed him and
Well,
Killmonger. Gone, unfortunately.
The one thing I always like, when people talk about this, I say yes, but since we're now dabbling in the realm of the multiverse, means not any character that's dead. It means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, but you've got to be careful not to pull that trigger too many times, right? So one of the difficulties in the comics, because you're telling these stories so often, is the amount of resurrection and the amount of fake outs. It loses its sting. It loses its emotional quality, right? Yeah. So it's one thing for them to set up and say, okay, look, Vision has got his memories back and the pale Vision has gone off. And then there's, you know, the kids are crying out from another dimension. We've peppered in this idea that they could come back, and we're okay with that, emotionally speaking. But if you just pull a gotcha over and over again and you go, oh no, you know, Ulysses Cloud didn't die and this didn't happen and Killmonger's not dead, you're just like, at some point you kind of go, well, nothing matters then. If it, you know, you can have the extremes of too many characters are dying, and then you're like, well, nothing matters because everyone's going to die.
Game of Thrones,
or you know, like some Walking Dead when it's in I think a really vicious kind of mode, or you have the no one dies, no one can ever die, everything comes back, so why am I, you know, nothing feels like it has any staying power, you know.
Jim, have you gotten to kill or bring back any characters in any of the comics you've written?
That's a good question. So
because I can't think of any.
Yeah, because I'm such an old school comic nerd, I really don't like offing characters because I know it's going to be undone. So I'd rather put them in a difficult circumstance they have to live with than knock them off. Do you know what I mean? There's the end of Thunderbolts, my run on Thunderbolts. There's a couple characters who go missing and are basically collapsed in an avalanche, and you're like, well, they should technically be dead. And so people were asking me, well, you know, would you have brought them back? And it's like, well, yeah, I had a plan to do another run of Thunderbolts or some other series after Secret Empire, you know, that I had pitched, and then it didn't end up going forward. And so I was going to solve that, but now it's unsolved, and it's up to some other writer to decide if they want those characters to come back or not. But I don't tend to go out of my way to murder off people. I go, no, that's not true. I have murdered the people. There was a character. And you know, now that we're doing this live, of course, I can't remember their name. So in Mystery in Madripoor, there's this character that Claremont had made for the original run of Wolverine in the Marvel Comics Presents, and she had literally showed up in like 5 or 6 issues, and that's all she was. She was like this kind of psychic vampire girl, like bad girl, evil thing. And I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but someone will have to look it up. And we used her as a way to bring back the original Betsy Braddock body for Psylocke. And part of the way I did that was by killing her off, and her energy kind of dissipates, and then Betsy uses it to reform her original British body. And so I have killed a character, and we killed her dead.
Sapphire Sticks? Is that
Sapphire Sticks? That's her name. Yeah, good stuff.
That's a sweet name, actually.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, she was really underutilized. I was reading up on Madripoor stuff when I pitched that book, because I knew they wanted. They asked me to do a Madripoor themed miniseries, and we didn't know exactly what we were going to do with it. And I was just reading every Madripoor issue.
Surprise, motherfucker.
And she came up, and I was like, whatever happened to her? And then I read, and I go, nothing's happened to her. She's literally done nothing. It's like, well, then that makes her, we can do something interesting. And what that ended up becoming was this series of ingredients I put together to switch up the way Betsy Braddock was going to work, and Psylocke and all that kind of stuff. And so, so I killed her dead.
She's got a great wiki entry where it just says weapons, handgun. That's it. Like, wow, so that guy's got claws made of unbreakable metal that come out of his hands.
Probably
and she's got a gun.
Not good enough. Yeah. So I kind of, but that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head that I've kind of murdered, I guess.
Did you bring back Conan Gath? Because I thought he was dead.
I didn't.
Somebody else do that in
that's Savage Avengers. Yeah, that's
okay.
Jerry Dugan. Yeah, he's doing Conan Run Around the Marvel Universe. I'm doing Conan Run Around the Hyborian Age. So that's all
good,
my jam.
by the way.
I like making stuff, honestly, more than I like killing off stuff. So one of the things that happened early on when I was doing Uncanny Avengers, I was talking to my editor, Tom Brevoort, and we were trying to solve some story problems. And one of the things that we were talking about was, well, how do we get around this? I want to use this character, and that character was being used elsewhere. And I was just like, and my editor, Tommy, goes, well, you can just make another character that performs the same function in the story. And I went, I can make stuff? And he's like, yeah, that's how they made the Marvel Universe, Jim. That's how it works. and so in that issue, I ended up having the Juggernaut fights the Uncanny Avengers, and we end up opening a portal. Dr. Voodoo opens a portal, and these, because Juggernaut's power comes from the gem of Cyttorak, these little mini Juggernauts, these little creatures called Cytorians come out, and they basically drag him away, and I made those up. And Sean Isaac made these little tiny Juggernaut creatures. And the day the issue came out, some fan put it on the wiki that there's these little Cytoras. And I was like, I made a thing in the Marvel Universe. Oh, crap. And from that point on, I've been pretty addicted. And so everything from Voyager to Snow Guard to all these different kind of characters and ideas, I want to try and make as much cool stuff in the Marvel Universe as possible, because that hopefully, one of those becomes something that people really remember and love over the years, because that's the stuff that I think is so exciting about it. It's such a dynamic and vibrant creative space to be able to make cool stuff. And Marvel's not going to say no. Like, they're like, hey, I got an idea for a new thing. Cool. Like, throw a new hero, a new villain into the mix instead of just going back to the well for the 4,000th time, So yeah, big time. Not that I don't like doing that too. I love the old continuity and pulling weird old threads. Like when I was writing Champions, and I go, I want to have Man-Thing show up, and they're like, how are you going to put those together? It'll be cool. You're just like,
do you know how many old issues of Conan I've bought because of you?
Oh,
because
dude. So glad to hear it. Yeah, and I love. Writing Conan's the best. I just, as soon as I say it, I'll just get the smile on my face. I do these interviews. People are like, what are you working on right now? And I go, Conan the Barbarian. And then I sort of think to myself, how did I get here? This is the craziest thing.
Conan, but Marvel doesn't have the film rights, right? Like, we can't get like a Conan.
No, so Conan Properties is an actual company. It's this company called Cabinet Entertainment, and they have a subdivision called Conan Properties. So I know those guys really well now, because we're doing all of our approvals through them for the comics, right? Because Marvel is licensing it from Conan Properties. So Frederick Malberg, he's the head of Conan Properties, and we'll DM each other over Twitter all the time and send each other crazy crap. They've got a Netflix deal for Conan they've announced. So there's going to be a show in development. Fred and I are chatting all the time about crazy Conan stuff, and he really he's been a big supporter of what I've been doing, and he's very excited about our future plans and stuff. So it's nice. It feels really good to be able to kind of be able to throw big ideas off him, or just tell him why I really like the property, or what I see readers responding to within it, And I'm really hopeful for the future on that stuff.
I had a really brief moment where I thought I got really excited about the idea of a Conan series on Disney Plus, but on Netflix is great because they've been doing great with their fantasy properties.
Yeah, totally. I think they'll do right by it. And even just the preliminary stuff that Fred's been talking to me about, it all sounds like everyone's on the same page, because half the battle in Hollywood is getting the people. Just getting something, through the goalposts is tough, but then making sure that people see the same vision of it, you know what I mean? That they all understand what we're coming here to make, right? I do a lot of work for Dungeons and Dragons, and, Wizard of the Coast has been working with Warner Brothers on movie stuff. And one of the biggest things is trying to make sure the people that are the decision makers and the money people, that everyone sees the same kind of picture, that they all know what we're going for. And that kind of unity can be really difficult when you have so many moving parts in Hollywood. Like in comics, it's like, I got to convince my editor and the art team, okay, we're all seeing the same thing, let's go. And it's a much more controllable system, but with so much money and so many different departments involved in the Hollywood end of things, it's kind of mind numbing at times. And when you see it done well, when you see a TV show that lands in every department, WandaVision or anything else. And if you've ever been involved in any of this stuff, you know how rare that is. And so you feel this intense, like, wow, you guys really did it. Like you stuck the landing and everyone did a good job in editing and filmmaking and the casting and all those stupid moving parts. You know what I mean? I remember there's this great anecdote that Neil Gaiman was talking about when they were filming. This is really early in his kind of Hollywoodish stuff. They were doing a BBC series of Neverwhere. Mm-hmm. I really low budget, I think, because it's BBC, of course, right? And he says, he wrote a paragraph in the book, and there's a scene where one of the characters, some vagrant screams at him and punches him and knocks him into the mud. And he, it's just a moment. He wrote it on his keyboard, and that was all there was. And he goes, and here I am in the middle of this soundstage, and because it's pouring rain, they have to continually pour water on this soundstage, and everyone's getting drenched. And every single person on the set there's 50 people on set, and the sound people, and the cinematographers, and the actors. Everyone's covered in mud and water, and the sound people running around. And to set up a shot just to knock someone's ass into the mud takes them an hour and a half, and then they knock the guy into the mud. And they're like, it didn't quite work the way we want. Okay, reset all the thing and everyone dry the guy off and we got to do it over again. And he goes, and we spent 5 hours knocking a guy into the mud because I wrote 2 sentences. And he's like, and you think to yourself, oh my God, like it's so much easier just to write it. It's so much easier just to do the comic, and then to try and envision that through all these crazy filters and things is so much harder and so much more work to get that singular experience on the screen.
Matt, like I have to give props to Kevin Feige for everything he's done with the Marvel universe. Like it's just amazing how we've gotten to this point.
Everything I've heard is that I've never met him, but I've heard he is a real fan, like an absolute fan of the stuff. He really loves the material and he wants to do right by it, but he's not precious in the sense of like you have, depending on the character, 30, 40, 50 years worth of continuity. You can't do it all. Mm-hmm. So you got to pick the stuff that's going to be most, poignant or relevant to the here and now and to the actors and the writers and the directors. Yeah. And that's a tough thing to do, to filter as much as there is,
Yeah.
And it just seems like he's building a puzzle, and for some reason every time he picks up a piece he already knows where it goes.
Yeah. Well, I think he's got really smart people working behind the scenes too. Like the casting has been brilliant, and the picking directors that simultaneously are passionate enough to make something cool, mm-hmm. but also are willing to follow the Marvel tapestry that's being rolled out. I think that's a tough balance to do as well.
I also
they haven't always been able to pull it off in that.
No, I mean there's some of it, but I think what's most impressive is the worst Marvel movie is still entertaining. Do you know what I mean? I have never left the movie theater after a Marvel movie and been like, that sucked. Like it's always been like, okay, that wasn't the best one, but I had good laughs. The writing was good. The characters almost always elevate the material. And Robert Downey Jr. is a perfect example of it. Like he would make even the weakest Iron Man movie is still entertaining as all hell because of him, And so the films that I wasn't like overjoyed, I still went, I got my money's worth. That was fine. They kept the ball rolling.
Yeah.
What I meant though was that every time they've tried to bring in like more of a visionary director like Edgar Wright and that, there have always been the conflict issues and that, because he has an idea about how it's going to go, and they have like
the auteur kind of director is not what they want, and for better or for worse, that's that's a franchise, right? That's the way that this stuff goes. You have to you're being sublimated by the broader system. You know what I mean? Like I get hired to, not that it's on the same scale, obviously, but I get hired by Marvel when I'm writing continuity, for superhero stuff. They want my ideas and they want my excitement, but my ideas still come up against the broader Marvel universe. And if I'm doing something insanely risky or changing a character in a very severe way, it has to be with an understanding of a net benefit, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm going to break a Betsy Braddock free from Psylocke's, Asian body or whatever, the reason why we were able to pitch it and get it done is because we ended up with 2 characters instead of 1. Yeah. And so now we have, the the two characters that they can now tell stories with. So rather than me just killing someone off for the sake of killing someone off, or is this a really great story rather than it just being like shock value or whatever may have you. And so, you know, if I need an independent space to just go buck on something, that's what my creator-owned books are for. That's where I can unfettered, you know, make crazy stuff and not have to. The only person I got to impress is my artist, you know, and let's go.
Who's amazing.
Yeah, I've got some amazing collaborators. I'm really, really proud of the books I've been able to put together. But, you know, within the Marvel system, I think people have the wrong idea. They assume that it's one of these two extremes. Either I have no creativity whatsoever and editorial gives me marching orders and I just fill in dialogue balloons, or that I can do whatever the hell I want. And it's like, neither of these things are true. You know what I mean? Like, I can pitch ideas, and a big part of it in any job, in any kind of field, is communicating and convincing someone that this is the right path to go, that my idea is the one that's going to have the best net benefit, whether that's excitement of the fans and sales, obviously, but also just cool opportunities for storytelling and emotional depth or whatever may have you. And so part of my job is to convince the editor this is the right way to go. So then they're championing it up the ladder and saying, we got to do this. You know, Jim's got this crazy cool idea, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I also appreciate that Marvel, at least the MCU, has seemed like they aren't just beholden to a lot of what we've seen so far, or they'll slightly evolve something. Like, for example, going back to WandaVision, like the actual Scarlet Witch. Like, I remember hearing in an interview like years ago that they'd never put her in that costume. She'd never get that moniker. And look at what we have in WandaVision. It's like, it's such a good evolution of that character.
And it's figuring out a way to make it work. Absolutely. In the original, you know, version of her in Age of Ultron, I'm like, she's real, you know, kind of low rent villain turned into a hero. It's fine. It's whatever. I really like Wanda as a character. I really want, you know, to see more of her in the comics as well. I want to write more stories with her before this series even came out. But seeing them do right by her and doing like the big magic and have her kind of be this huge character on a power level and on an emotional level, I feel like that is all you could ask for as a, you know, as an actor and as a writer, and that's the best, you know?
Yeah, there's this big internet theory, rumor thing. I'm gonna go with theory.
Conspiracy theory.
That they're trying to put the Scarlet Witch persona or magical being sort of as this sort of big celestial type being, sort of like the Phoenix in this. Like, and it's you sort of see that imagery in this, and I wonder if they're gonna go towards that way. I think that would be a cool way of doing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, you know, I feel like fans want more, you know, Marvel Universe stuff faster. So I think that they're just trying to push and push. Everyone wants to sort of look at the edges and kind of go, okay, where's Reed Richards? Okay, where's Professor X and Wolverine, and let's go, you know, and the celestial stuff or any of the cosmic stuff. They just want to push it further and faster. And it's cool. Obviously, the reason why people are so excited and why they're creating all these fan theories is because they're passionate about the material. Yes. And you couldn't ask for anything else from a fan base, you know, even if they're occasionally disappointed because you didn't do 100 crazy things at once. The fact that they're theorizing is because you, first of all, have all these amazing ingredients, and second of all, that they're passionate and they want to see the connective tissue, you know?
Yeah. One of my favorite characters growing up, I started reading comics in the 90s, early 90s, was the OG like White Vision. And to see him on screen and sort of that dickish, like more robotic version of Vision that I remember reading was such a good idea. What did you guys think of that whole ship of Theseus? Not combat, but sort of a battle of wits that happened in the...
That's my favorite part of the series, because we so rarely see like it's, I don't even know if it was verbal sparring, but it was just like, I'm going to convince this person.
Sparring,
with I'm going to beat this person with words, especially in the kind of universe where everybody just punches each other to death.
I don't know if you guys know, that specific interaction is taken from a Mark Waid issue of Avengers. What? So yeah. So Mark Waid wrote this. It's a Immortus storyline. It's really, really good. And that little sequence, it's not exactly the same, but he talks about the ship of Theseus and he's talking to himself from a different time period. And so I love when they call back to like absolute stuff. You know, the speech that Sharon Carter has at the funeral That's taken from an issue of Captain America, and Cap says most of those lines that she says during the, that whole thing of when someone says, move and you say no, or well, that stuff, that's all taken from the comics, almost line for line from speeches that Cap has said. So it's like, that stuff feels so cool that they're really finding those poignant moments to pull from great issues. And that Vision one's a kind of a deep cut. It's a really good piece, and not something I ever obviously expected to see up on the screen. And as it was playing out, I just got this big smile on my face. I'm like, man, Mark must be getting tingles, because that's dialogue you wrote. Like, that's gotta be utterly surreal, very strange.
That's amazing. I have to look that up now. The MCU is also known for these amazing moments between characters, especially family, and in those goodbye moments. We get the Iron Man I Love You 3000, which is that last scene between them. We get the Yondu's goodbye in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, that's my boy. And then this time we get Wanda saying, "Thank you for choosing me," to her twins. And I thought that was just like, me having kids, I was just like dying inside. I was like, oh my God. And outside, I was crying outside and inside. But, what did you guys think of, and then the continued goodbye with Vision, and how they're not just saying goodbye. There's hopefully a hello again. What did you guys think of these goodbye scenes?
Oh my God, they're fantastic. They're tear jerkers. And really, I like the first time I watched it, I cried. Second time I watched it, I'm watching it with my wife. I'm watching it with Chris, and I'm fine. I'm like, I've seen this. I know what's gonna happen. It's okay. I can make it through. And as soon as you look over, you're like, oh crap! I see her face just pouring, and I'm like, no! It just starts happening. But I mean, think about that. Like, to be affected constantly on that level by a bunch of comic book characters that people used to kind of just joke and prod at, like this, people didn't think this was even possible at one time. And really, if you look back at the old like comic book movies of the 90s and such, no one thought they would be good enough to do stuff like this, but like to actually affect you like this. Now we have this little mini series that I've been so invested in, that goodbye killed me, but at the same time gave me so much hope for their future, for that whole family's future. I can't wait to see what they come up with.
Marcus, are you saying you didn't cry when Whistler died in Blade?
Well, I mean, if we're cutting hair, absolutely not.
For 8 weeks, they've been at the top of the pop culture mountain. Like, that's crazy when I think about it. Most movies wouldn't get that much at the forefront of everyone's conversation. Once, even Endgame, within a month, 6 weeks, all the secrets were out. Everyone knew, had said what they wanted to say about it, had spoiled all the stuff. But you had this ongoing conversation that just built on that emotional quality over and over and over again, and then paid off in the end. So like, my wife and I, we were so worried about being spoiled that we started watching them on Friday mornings. So we would get up literally like 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning. I would get a cup of tea, and then we'd turn it on and we'd watch. And so I'm sitting there in my PJs watching friggin' WandaVision with a cup of tea at 7:45 in the morning, and we're bawling our eyes out. And I'm just like, this is how I'm starting my Friday. Oh my God. Like, this is crazy. But it worked. It was really, really sharp, so
Matt Moore?
we did it.
I was just going to say the Vision and Wanda goodbye, absolutely beautiful and heart-wrenching. The goodbye they had with their kids, it hit me, but it hit me, I think, differently, because it's the words she chose. Thank you for choosing me as your mom. And then to have in the post-credit or hear them made me go, oh, are they Nexus beings as well too?
Or did she pull their spirits from somewhere? Like, it's such
like that, you know what I mean? Like, that's just one of those, because I'm like, it's the way that they worded it, and I'm just naturally Marvel paranoid, where I listen very carefully to the
Marvel paranoid,
especially in poignant moments, because they never just say a thing because it sounds cool.
Well, like, especially now they know
usually,
everything's going to be,
everyone analyzes things so much. So I was like, it was beautiful, but I was like, well, why did she say it that way? And then post-credit, I was like, that's why she said it that way. Okay, cool. May not have been, may have just been a coincidence, but
I mean, it probably helps that the script gets a couple passes too, right? So like they know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like the actor was like, "I'm going to say this," and then yeah.
I love seeing the Darkhold, the old Marvel Universe Necronomicon or whatever you want to call it, the big evil bad magic book. That stuff's great. I love all the magic stuff in the Marvel Universe, and the more of it that they bring into it, the happier I am. So I want Man-Thing. I want every supernatural character to show up. I want all that crazy crap. Like that is the stuff that feels like the Marvel Universe to me. The weird little corners and the strange characters. Those are the things I love most. So.
Yeah, it's funny because you mentioned the Darkhold. One of our Twitch viewers, OG Cylon, said, Agnes said Wanda's more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme. Is she going to be battling Doctor Strange maybe in multiverse?
I do have a feeling they're going to have, maybe not through the whole film, but there's going to be a villainous element. Like she's either going to be corrupted by the Darkhold, or she's going to be trying to save her kids, so she'll be justified to take out anyone in her way. There's going to be a magic scrap for sure. They've set it up. They've primed the pump. They've said she's more powerful than Strange for a reason. We want to see magic battle on that kind of scale.
Elizabeth Olsen as Liam Neeson in Taken, and Doctor Strange as all the Bosnian or Bulgarian or whatever baddies, because he can make multiple versions of himself, right?
But I'm most excited because they're setting that up, but we also have Agatha, who's kind of in that weird little pocket limbo.
Yeah, I don't know that I think it might be too soon for them to bring her back for the Doctor Strange sequel. I feel like that maybe she's a post-credit on Doctor Strange 2 where you're like, oh, she's loose or whatever. But I don't think that's where they pay it off. I think it's too soon. They'll leave that in their pocket.
Yeah, the post-credit's going to be Mordo releasing her.
Well, we have Mordo kicking around that we have seen nothing from since the end of Doctor Strange.
It's true.
And I mean, what better way? Like, who else could bring in to mix things up even worse than bring?
I want
Mordo
more
in?
Dormammu, man. Like, I want to see
oh my
some
god,
of the cool plot lines, some of the classic Doctor Strange stories with Dormammu. I want to see that stuff pay off. I want to see Clea.
Well, we don't have a time stone anymore, right? So his whole thing with Dormammu, he's gonna be back, right? You can't not.
I want Clea. I want the Dark Dimension. I want the mindless ones. All that stuff.
Did you guys all watch the TV show Legion?
Yes. I didn't end up watching.
Yeah.
I watched the first season.
I loved it.
It is good.
It was cool. It was cool. It was a different kind of show, and it was a different kind of
super trippy.
It was really messed up. It was like it was kind of like you took a hit of acid and you watched the show. But they introduced the Shadow King, I think they called it.
I did
Shadow King. Yeah.
And I want to see that. I want to see more of that kind of thing too.
Well, they need to set up those big villains. One of the difficulties about doing the Infinity Gauntlet and Thanos is, you blew your wad. Like that is a big cosmic baddie. It's the right one to use, but like who can step up to that scale? And there's not very many characters on that scale in the Marvel Universe.
We do know that the Ant-Man 3, at least maybe not the villain, but we know Kang is in Ant-Man 3.
Kang is
who I'm hoping is the next, big thing. Because they've been messing with time, and it doesn't, he just seems like the perfect character to just come into everybody's timeline, different versions, but you can have the same actor or even different actors and just start messing with everybody.
No, it'd be really cool. I think again, I'm pretty confident they've got a cool, plan for the long-term kind of stuff. And one of the things that's so fascinating to me growing up, DC was the universe where you had generational kind of divide of characters. So you'd have the prodigies of each of the superheroes, right? So you have Superman, and then you have, Superboy or the new Superboy or whatever. You have Flash, you have Kid Flash, and then you have Impulse and all this kind of stuff. You have Green Lantern, who then becomes Kyle Rayner, who then becomes, all these different, handing off the role of the hero seemed like the DC thing. And the Marvel thing was Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yet what's insane is the movies have forced this reversal of fortune where in order for the movie universe to carry on, those actors are going to move out of those roles eventually. So someone else has to be Captain America. Someone else has to be Iron Man. Someone else has to be a Spider-Man, a Thor, a whatever, you know what I mean? And so it has created this weird structure that I never thought I would see in the Marvel Universe in a very logical fashion. and is pushing those kind of timelines and ideas forward, where you're going to see whether it's Young Avengers or Thunderbolts or Champions, or you have to iterate because at some point the actors are going to move on and the audiences aren't going to accept someone else picking up the role. They're just not.
Yeah.
In our Twitch, Detective Popcorn says that Legion was a great show, and OG Cylon says that they want to see Chthon.
Oh yeah, man. Chthon's,
yeah.
Chthon's an amazing villain. I can't say anymore. It's so good. I've had Chthon plans for comic stories for a while.
Chthon,
I think
is that
he's
the
so awesome.
Marvel version of like Cthulhu?
See, it's sort of like a
sort of
yes-ish, like it's an elder evil-y thing. Right, he's not Cthulhu, but there's sort of the whispers of those kinds of elements. I made a very Cthulhu-y villain in a miniseries called Serpent War. So we made a new kind of elder evil called the Worm.
That's
and
a
the
very
Worm
good comic.
is very stand-in Cthulhu. He's my Hyborian Cthulhu, or whatever you want to call it. I love those kinds of crazy, unknowable cosmic beings and alien elder god shit. That stuff's the best.
On Twitch, we have Smithception saying, "I want Adam Warlock to be a big bad." I don't know. Have they mentioned that?
I think they had their chance to do Warlock, and I don't know that there's a place for him now that they've done the stones with the Soul Stone and everything already out of commission.
Didn't they tease him in one of the movies?
Yeah, they did. They were
Guardians of the Galaxy too.
Yeah, that seems
so.
like
I think they could do, like I said, just about anything because they always seem to be able to make it work. But there are a lot of other. I would like to see the Nova Corps. I would like to see a lot of different things kind of, play out on that bigger, broader space. I would love for them to tease like Silver Surfer even before the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
I'm still waiting on a hint of real Galactus. Would just be so great.
Well, you never know. We saw that spaceship, I guess, sort of sword spaceship in the end of Spider-Man, and the first post-credits scene in WandaVision was that Skrull sword agent talking to Monica about going on. I'm really curious to see how they build out the cosmic end of things. They've got a lot of great material there still to work with. I would love to see Namor and the undersea stuff. There's so many places they can still go. It's such a vibrant space, for them to build off of. Yeah, Eternals, that the film that's coming out later this year, is probably one of my more exciting things.
It's one of those weird things where, on the face of it, Eternals seems like a weird option to announce, and then you're like, they'll make it work. They'll make it work. The characters, even if you don't have any emotional connection to them right now, they'll make it work. I'm confident in that.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Eric, is there one thing I can bring up before we close out?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna talk about with the end of the series and the episode being titled the series finale. There's been internet talk about, is this actually the end of WandaVision? Are we gonna get a season 2? Which I think is sort of weird. What do you guys think of this idea? Whether they should have one?
I don't think we're going for another season.
No.
I feel they closed it off perfectly. They gave us a beautiful story that progressed their stories and their arcs and everything. I don't think they need to come back to reassess a WandaVision story anymore. I think those characters could easily come back in other mini-series or mini episode things or whatever, but I don't think we need them as the focus, as their couple, as them together again, because I feel like it would be kind of wasteful to have them, after this beautiful goodbye and this beautiful moment, to have them come back and then have us to do it again. It doesn't feel right.
If I have my druthers, what you'd see is you do Multiverse of Madness, and then if you're like, oh, Scarlet Witch is super popular, we need to do more magic, you team her up with other supernatural or magic characters, and you call it Journey into Mystery or something. You just do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds perfect right there.
It's my job, man. That's what I do. Right?
And then we get a companion series where Vision has made a whole neighborhood of visions called the Visions, like that.
Oh man,
series. Oh man, that would be amazing.
Yeah, the Tom King series is really, really good. Super sharp.
Sorry, Hawk.
They could not do a second season of this because they've already cut the premise of it was the whole thing with the sitcoms and that but really it was Wanda and this big psychotic break that she had with reality and that.
What other story would they tell, right?
Yeah, better to leave people wanting more from the characters than to overextend your welcome.
Exactly.
Yeah, and she came out at the end of it like a more complete person than that. So it like it would be redundant.
Yeah.
Matt Moore, you got to dab for the Twitch people.
Yep.
Do it.
So they want you to dance.
Dab, monkey, dab.
I'm sorry, no, my computer froze for a second, so I was like, wait, what am I doing now?
You're dabbing.
dabbing.
You're dabbing.
Dab.
All right.
You're gonna hurt yourself one day.
Probably.
Sorry, Dave. Okay, you wanted to.
Yeah. So one of the things that nobody's talking about, because we usually talk about it with Marvel movies, is the director of the series. That had one director for the entire series, Matt Shakman, and he's done a lot of stuff. I mean, like tons of TV, and I mean, it kind of all falls on the director in a lot of ways, right? Like so much of this stuff is up to the director to make sure this production works. And he clearly did an excellent job. Like everybody did an excellent job on the series. And I would chalk it up to him doing 43 episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, one of my favorite series. So you could wrangle that set. You could probably wrangle any
43
set.
episodes. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Wild. Wow.
He's worked on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I feel because his name is at the top of every episode, but nobody's been talking about him. And I feel like that's undeserved because clearly, like he's done great work. Like he just directed a 9-hour more or less Marvel film. That's some of the greatest storytelling we've had in a Marvel series. And I'm sure like
a
all
lot
the
of the
writers,
Marvel
too.
directors don't get the kudos that they deserve, even because the Marvel name feels bigger than them in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But you've got a few, like the Russo brothers have obviously managed to leverage it in a big way, and it's not like Joss Whedon needed a lot of advertising before, but there are some standouts. James Gunn has obviously been a real, but he was more of an indie guy before this anyways, and now he's been able to kind of leverage off of it. So
all the original directors were kind of already like Jon Favreau, he was pretty established. Joe Johnson on Captain America, like they got directors for the kind of genre they wanted to make, right? They got Kenneth Branagh for Thor, and now there tend to be, I guess, sort of lesser known in some regards because the Russo brothers, they did a ton of great TV. They did Community, they did Arrested Development,
sure.
But they
you
weren't
wouldn't
really
have
known
thought
for
that
movies.
they were high action, intrigue spy stuff.
There's some good episodes of Community. The paintball episodes are high action.
Sure.
Yeah.
The one director who always stands out is Peyton Reed, because like you look at his resume and you see like Bring It On and that, and he's kind of more. I think he's more like a studio director. It's like he knows how to bring a project in and that, and he was brought in after Edgar Wright had to leave Ant-Man and that, and like. Ant-Man stood out as one of my favorite in the Marvel.
And that must have been the toughest gig, right? Where there's this real public split and everyone's kind of expecting the worst because Edgar Wright is such a beloved filmmaker, and you thought it was going to be this perfect pairing, and now all of a sudden he's gone and everyone's like, oh, well, that movie's dead on arrival. And then you're like, oh man, I got to pick up the pieces. And he did, and he made it work. That's a tough gig for sure.
For sure. Any final thoughts on WandaVision before we head on?
Two thoughts on that. Thanks to Dave when we were doing the watch along on that, and for pointing out the Tannhauser Gate reference.
Oh yeah. They also had some good Wizard of Oz references this episode too, right? Yeah. They had the shoes, and then they had Oz the Great and Powerful on the marquee, which was directed by Sam Raimi, who's directing Doctor Strange too. So it's just like
so maybe that was more intentional than we even thought, right? Just, obviously Wizard of Oz is a nod, but maybe it's like, well, so, I mean, let's give a little nod to somebody who's picking up what's coming down next, probably.
Yeah. Well, especially if you go with the original timeline of it too, where the movie would have been coming out immediately after.
Yeah, the weirdest year without a Marvel movie, right?
Yeah.
The strangest.
We didn't even get
timeline.
Black Widow yet. Like this is crazy.
No, it's weird.
Sorry, Hawk.
And I think the theorizing over Black Widow is going to be intense once that gets closer to release. For sure.
For sure.
May. Sorry, Hawk.
There's one more reference, and that was when they said goodbye to the children. I had this little flashback to Steven Spielberg's AI. I don't know if you guys caught that as well, but the ending of it seemed to parallel that the ending of that movie as well. Anyways, that's all I had to say.
We have a couple of comments over in the Twitch from Rob George 29. The Westview Vision downloading his memories into the White Vision is a callback to Vision's origin, where his mind was based on Wonder Man's brain patterns. That could set up White Visions into later evolving into the real Vision. And
Wonder Man is actually one of my favorite heroes, and
Yes.
I would love to see him, whether he's played by Nathan Fillion or someone else. Like, just
I think Nathan Fillion would do a great job. He would be awesome.
because he
Has
was
Nathan? He hasn't been in the MCU at all.
he has he's been in Guardians.
he was a poster.
Oh, that's
But
right. Yeah.
he was Simon Williams. He was Simon Williams in posters in that, and he has also done CGI parts in. I think he's the guy who gets whatever messed up by Groot in the first Guardians in the.
Really?
Yeah, he's just
That's
like
awesome.
one.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff because he's friends with James Gunn.
Nice.
We also
Never seen Slither, and you want to see some body horror.
Slither.
Yeah. We also have one question from Twitch by OG Silent. Recently, it was announced that Bruce Campbell is going to appear in Doctor Strange 2. Any thoughts on?
I mean, that's just a Sam Raimi special. That's how you do. If you're one of Sam Raimi's brothers, especially Sam Raimi's brother, you're going to show up in a Sam Raimi movie, right? So Bruce Campbell being in there is no surprise whatsoever.
I'm hoping he plays a doorman.
Yeah.
We get like a Spider-Man reference.
I'm hoping they actually go through with what his plan was and make him Mysterio.
Oh,
That was always that was
another
that was his plan.
universe?
That in the next Spider-Man he was going to find
Spider-Man 4.
Mysterio.
That would have been
So
cool.
I'm hoping maybe they actually pull that out just as a nod for fun.
I mean, what if we start getting Sam Raimi Marvel films beyond this? Like that would be nuts.
It'd be great.
Just like he really brought Marvel films to kind of where they like before Jon Favreau. Like Spider-Man was huge. That was the biggest comic book movie for a long time.
He had the sensibility down.
Oh yeah.
And 1 and 2 are so sharp and they're so fun and they feel like the comics, and even the hokey parts, you're just like, yeah, no, he gets it. He really, really wants to deliver that feeling up there on the screen. And 3 is obviously a big weird mess, but that feels like just the studio meddling, like classic too many cooks in the
If you
kitchen
just
stuff.
focus on Thomas Hayden Church,
right.
because he did amazing. in
Let's
that.
just keep adding things in.
Well, 3 was like Spider-Man 3 was just 2 movies that kind of bashed together and said, okay, now here you go.
They sort of did that with Amazing Spider-Man 2 as well, so that's unfortunate. Any other final thoughts from the crew here?
What I wanted to say is, like, I feel like WandaVision has set a new precedent and also kind of just changed what everybody expects from the future of Marvel and for the future of their like television series or mini series as they will start making them. And like, what do you guys think the future holds? Or like, what do you think? Is this going to be a complete game changer? Are we expecting these to be like the new thing? Like, are we going to start kind of losing movies and maybe going into more miniseries? Or are we going to just see them peppering these miniseries to give us bigger character arcs into movies and that kind of stuff? Like, what do you think is going to be the future?
I think whatever will make Disney the most money will probably be what they decide to go with. So probably a mixture of both.
I hope it's a mixture of both.
Yeah.
I would love to see Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. get a little bit of love and maybe show up in like a multiverse on a series or something like that. Because
they might have to do something like that just to explain the fact that there's a lot of contradictions already of like why things aren't the same between the universes. But
there are also so many good
screenshot in Multiverse of Madness to go, that's a different universe, that's a different universe, that's a different universe. That's all it's going to take.
There are so many little good elements of that show.
It was a dream. Everything was a dream.
Coulson wakes up after.
Coulson wakes up and he's like, oh man.
Phil Coulson wakes up in bed with Bob Newhart.
Nice. All the references.
Oh, yeah. No, anyone else? All good? Well, good.
I think we'll see a combination of the big features and then these series, because then like Jim has said, it's great because you can take these series and flesh out the spaces in between the movies and tell the stories to make you care about the characters even more, so that when you get the big collaborative films, you know the stories and you're not sitting there going, man, I really wish I could see what happened there. You're like, oh, just go on to Disney Plus and watch it. It's like 6 episodes.
Yeah, I'm now so much more confident. Not that I ever wasn't, but it's like everything from She-Hulk to Ms. Marvel to all that. It's like, okay, if they're overseeing it, then it's going to have the heart at the center of it, and they're still going to be telling good stories. And then our job in making the comics is to not only hopefully set the bar for future potential stories, but to realize how much potential these characters have, and that there are no bad characters, there are only bad stories. And when they can take these weird C-list characters or B-list characters or odd storylines and make them incredibly emotionally resonant, that, you know, kind of kicks me in the ass and reminds me like I got to do more. I got to go deeper and make it as good as I can, you know.
I'm going to steal that for my D&D games. There are no bad characters, only bad stories.
And really bad rolls. Really bad rolls.
Yeah, really bad.
Oh.
So a lot of ones.
There are no bad characters, only bad saving throws.
Well, I just wanted to thank our special guest, Jim Zub, for coming on to the show and talking about WandaVision with us. It's been a blast. Are there any current or upcoming projects that you can talk about that you want to promote?
Well, I don't. This episode aired live, so
we will go on podcast form in 2 days.
Okay, well, in 2 days, if it's the day of, it's Wednesday if when you're listening to this or you're watching it right now, Conan the Barbarian number 19 is on the stands Wednesday, March 10th. Super, super proud of it. We're starting a new story arc. Artist Corey Smith is now our regular penciler on the book. It looks friggin' amazing. I'm super proud of the book. I love writing Highborn adventures. I want to do it as long as possible. Buy the damn thing. And we bring the action and the savagery, everything that you would want out of this character to the page. So that's my big release. We just wrapped up Stranger Things in D&D, Jody Hauser and I and Diego Galindo and our team. It was a Dark Horse IDW co-production. We had an absolute blast working on that. It was a real joy. I've got more D&D stuff in the hopper, but nothing formally has been announced. But I know that does not surprise anyone because I
need more Minsk and Boo in comic form.
I can't stop writing D&D. They basically are going to have to take it from my cold dead hands.
Please don't. Please don't let them. If you have to write fan fiction, I don't care.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I will write that stuff forever. I've got a couple other cool projects in the hopper. But yeah, that's all the stuff that's been announced, I think, right now. It's always weird because you're like in your head, you're working ahead on what's coming next. But yeah, sure. All sorts of fun stuff at Marvel, fun stuff for D&D. And
Will people be able to buy the Skull Kickers book other than the Kickstarter?
Yes. So we got two things we're going to be doing. So Skull Kickers, last summer we did a Kickstarter for the 10th anniversary a celebration. This book that's called Castor Bastards and the Great Grotesque. And it's this oversized 36-page comic story and like 80-page Dungeons and Dragons style tabletop adventure. That's currently still in production. We're actually playtesting a bunch of it right now. It's going really well. We're having a blast. And based on our current schedule, fingers crossed, toes crossed, we're going to be sending those out to backers in June. And it's a beautiful book. But we're going to have the comic get released on its own, just that story. So if people missed it, they'll be able to pick it up as a regular comic. And then I'm not sure if we're going to be doing the adventure on its own or keep it collected together. The original reason why we did the Kickstarter was because it seemed like such a weird project, the comic and the game, because you didn't want to take it to a game publisher and I didn't want to take it to a comic publisher. So I'm not sure if we'll see it outside of that. I'll have copies for sale like on my website and stuff. And I'll have copies at conventions when those exist again. Mm-hmm. But, Yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to get a major release in that format. If it does, it will definitely be different looking than the Kickstarter release, so that'll have an exclusivity to it.
Oh, cool, sure. Yeah. Speaking of website, where can the people find you online?
Really simple, jimzub.com. So just JIMZUB.com or ZUB for you Americans listening along. We're all Canadian, so you got to put up with the Zs.
Exactly.
I'm also on
Queens.
That's right. I'm on Twitter at Jim Zub, and that website's got everything. It's a hub site for all my interviews and previews, links to all my books, as well as tutorials on how to write comics, how to pitch your own stories, and how to break into the business. Yeah. So if you're interested in that kind of end of things, feel free to check it out.
And if you like fantasy comics, you can read all of Skull Kickers. That's how I discovered Jim Zub was through because I got to dig into webcomics. My God, I've written so much fantasy stuff. It is my jam. So everything from Pathfinder, Dungeons and Dragons, Munchkin, Skull Kickers, to Samurai Jack, and then I keep injecting fantasy stuff into other books where it doesn't belong, like Champions, and you can't stop me with this stuff. I bleed D20s. That's my jam. So.
I was telling these guys the story afterwards, but I'm going to personally thank Jim again for this little story that I'm gonna tell. Me and my daughter, she just started getting into the Marvel stuff with WandaVision actually, and so we started looking at comic books because she saw that I had a collection, so she wanted to get her own. So we were on Indigo's website and we were going through different pictures, and Jim's book, Disney Kingdom's Figment, showed up on the screen. She's like,
Sweet.
"Oh, dragon, purple dragon," and I was like, "Okay."
Oh, nice. Matt's got the book right there. Man, writing those Disney books is a real joy. I got to work with the Disney Imagineering team, and we got to build out this kind of world for the Dreamfinder and Figment. And the fans, the Disney fans, have been so passionate and amazing. And their enthusiasm, anytime anyone talks about the Disney parks and remaking Journey into Imagination, the number of people that jump up and are like, they should base it on the comic. It's so good. And I'm just like, whoa, guys, calm down. Like they announced that there's that new Disney series that they announced that's going to be on Disney Plus, God knows when, but it's apparently going to be based on a bunch of the rides, and a bunch of people, like 20, 30 people sent me that link as soon as it went up on the Hollywood Reporter. And they're like, they got to do Dreamfinder. And they're like, Jim, you got to tell them. I'm like, I have no horse in this race.
Can you call Mr. Disney?
I'll just call it Roy Disney. Look, man, you got to do this.
Just do it for
so
me.
It's cool stuff. It was a real joy to work on. And the people have been so amazing about that book. I will tell you a funny anecdote that'll take a little bit of a dig. So I'm doing New York Comic Con, and whenever someone's bringing up the Disney books, I can usually tell it's either a little kid or it's someone who's like wearing Disney paraphernalia like everywhere, And so someone's wearing a Figment t-shirt. I'm like, well, I know what they're coming over to get signed or whatever. And I see this little girl, like barely comes up to the top of the table kind of thing. And I'm like already prepared for it. I've got the purple Sharpie marker. I know I'm going to sign it. Like, we're going to do this thing. And this little girl comes up and she's like, excuse me. And the mother is standing back because she like encourages the kid to greet, And I looked down and said, yes. She goes, are you Mr. Zub? And I'm like, yes, I'm Mr. Zub. And she goes, okay. And she reaches into her backpack and she pulls out the Pathfinder comics and she slams them on the table. And I was like, what?
That's amazing.
I was going to joke that it was Mystery and Madripoor.
Yeah,
but
those Pathfinder comics are violent. They're like violent. And I was looking at them and I go, what? And she goes, this is me. And she points at Sione, one of the characters in the series.
Sorceress.
And I was like, what's going on? And so the mother comes over and explains, she goes, she was at a comic book store with her father, and these kids were doing a demo of Pathfinder. They were learning how to play, and they were laughing and having a good time. And she's like, I want to play the game too. And they're like, well, those boys are playing over there. And they heard her and they say, yeah, come on over and play. So she plays for like 4 hours. They give her the Sione character and she plays and she has an absolute ball. And then afterwards she's like, so what is my story? What am I supposed to do? And they go, well, there's these comics. She's in the comics. So she started collecting the comics to find out what her story was. And now this kid is obsessed with Pathfinder. And so I took a photo with her and she's holding up the comics. She's super excited. And I sent it to the Paizo people. And I was like, this little 6-year-old girl kills goblins. Just want you guys to know. She's killed a lot of goblins in your name. And they're like, that is awesome.
So cool.
Yeah. So sometimes you think you're getting Figment, but you don't.
That's amazing.
Oh, now I want to show my daughter that because we just started playing D&D.
They're very violent.
If you pick up the trades, there's actually parts of adventures in the back of those trades.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
So you can just play Pathfinder from those comics.
Oh, definitely. She would love that. We were playing. We were planning on doing a D&D game based on My Little Pony this weekend. So
nice.
That's our weekend plans. Yeah. So once again, I got to thank Jim Zub for coming on. Go visit him on his website and all the socials. We'll put in the show notes. Speaking of show notes, I'm currently revamping the website, so things are sort of broken. So if you go there and things aren't in the right spot, send us a message on one of our socials and I'll try and fix it. It's a slow process.
Eric
It'll
is
get
spinning
fixed.
37 plates at the same time.
Oh, so many plates. Oh my
and none of
goodness.
us know how to help him.
It's fine. I can do it. Once again, thanks Jim, thanks Dave, thanks Hawk, thanks Marcus, thanks Matt Moore for coming on and talking about WandaVision. It's been a blast. Thank you, and especially thank all of you out there watching us live on Twitch or watching us on YouTube or listening to us in podcast form. We're found everywhere. So thank you again for spending your time with us and talking nerd. We love doing it, and we'll come back every other week to talk with you. So thanks again for everyone here. Thank you for listening. We shall see you guys soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Well, that's it for us this week on Geeks with Kids. If you want to get a hold of us, you can send us an email at podcast@geekswithkids.ca. And don't forget to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/geekswithkids. Follow us on Twitter at geekswithkidscn. Check out our pics on Instagram at geekswithkids. And you can find all of this good stuff on our website at www.geekswithkids.ca. So if you like what you hear, why don't you hit that subscribe button and leave us a comment. This podcast can be found on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, and your favorite podcasting app. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.